All right, welcome again. This is Paying for College Financial Aid Basics. I'm going to share my screen and we can jump on in and get started. All right, you should be able to see the screen and away we go. Again, my name is Eric Baldwin, Financial Aid Advisor here at Iowa State University. Awesome. All right, our agenda for today, if I can get to the right screen, there we go. Today's agenda. We're going to look at how to view your financial aid package, understanding your cost of attendance, estimating your expenses, covering your costs, and planning your next steps. A lot to cover in a short period of time. We're going to kind of hit the peaks of everything that we're talking about. But I encourage you again, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us either by email, by phone, or set up an appointment. We'd love to sit down and talk with you. So jumping right in, let's talk about viewing your financial aid offers. So Workday is our new platform that we're using this year. Once your student has done all the onboarding tasks, they should be able to log in to Workday. So to view their financial aid package, they would want to log in, and then under the apps, they're going to click financial aid. After they click financial aid, this wonderful screen is going to come up. There's a couple things you can do on this screen. The main thing we're going to talk about right now is how to view your financial aid. You also can accept and decline awards. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And also, if you ever have a scholarship, not going to be covered today, but you could also go in here to report some additional scholarships that your student may have received. So once they click the financial aid, then it'll pull up the year. You're going to need to put in the year for this next school year, 24-25. Following that, it's going to pull up this page is where it's going to show some of your financial aid. So as you look at your financial aid, you're going to see that there's several columns here. So up front, you're going to see this is an ISU grant. This is a scholarship. The amount offered, the amount accepted, and that's going to give us a status column. The status column is going to tell us whether it's accepted, whether it's been offered, or provisional. The difference is for accepted, any grants, scholarships that you received is considered gift aid. And we know you're going to be wanting free money. Free money is good money is what I say. So so it automatically will show up on there as accepted. You don't have to do anything for those funds. Work study is a little bit of a different animal. It does say accepted, but you have to work for those funds if you want those funds, and we will be talking about that in a little bit. Down here, you can see the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized are offered. So those are available to students. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. It's about how to accept those, but they're not there yet. So that once the student does accept them, then they'll say accepted there or declined if they decline them. And the last one down here is provisional. Basically, this is the rest of the amount for the semester that you can take out in either a private loan, a plus loan, or if you have cash, however you're going to do it, that's the additional cost up to your cost of attendance. And we're going to talk about what cost of attendance is as well. Also on this page, you can also print out financial aid offers, and you can accept and decline your awards by clicking there, but we're not going to do that right now. Because before accepting your awards, we always want to go through, we want to see what your costs are going to actually look like. So let's look into that. So we're going to look at your estimated cost of attendance. So this is for first year, this is pretty close to your estimated cost of attendance. So it's on this, it shows you your resident and non-resident. This is if you're in state or if you're out of state. Shows you the tuition and fees, general tuition and fees. Now, in future years, those tuition and fees can go up a little bit. There's what's called deferred tuition, and that's for if you're in certain majors, that'll make a difference there. Food and housing is on here as well for your estimated cost of attendance. This is our standard plan, our cardinal plan, and the average housing plan. Now, for you individually, it might be a little different because you might be in a housing that might be a little cheaper. You might be in housing that's a little more, but this gives you a place to at least start and to look at. Books and materials, it says $700 here, but it's actually going to be $518. Woo woo! We have this new immediate access one, which provides all the books for the students each semester, whether they're digital or in paper. So that'll be $518. So the rest down here in your cost of attendance is non-billable costs. So these are personal expenses. So I always like to say we provide the housing, we provide the food, but we're not a hotel, so no towels, shampoos, and all the personal sundries that you need. So that's included in that personal expenses, and then transportation back and forth. If you're a non-resident, they budget a little more in there for you so that you can get back home to out of state if you need to. But these are not billable costs. And so what I like to focus on is what's billable costs, because a lot of times you can reach these other personal expenses either through work study or through other ways, but what's going to be charged to you on your bill. And so I focus on this middle section right here, which is the billable cost per semester. So if you go into Workday, you can see your aid, your estimated aid that's offered to you. So for that student we just looked at, they had the ISU grant, which was $18.50, as you can see there. And then the employment here is actually the work study, but you've got to work to get that. It's not just aid that comes in. This is a little tricky because you're going to look and say, hey, those loans are the same amount as the out-of-pocket loans. So basically, it's your cost of attendance is what they're going to list there in the loans. But what you're going to want to look at, again, is your estimated total cost. And that's your cost of attendance, which includes billable and non-billable items. Remember, when you're budgeting, you want to look at those billable items. So what you would want to do is go down here and click on the estimated costs. Once you click on the estimated costs, it's going to show you what those estimated costs are, billable and non-billable. Workday calls them institutional versus non-institutional. So you can see on here, books is still a little higher than what it's going to really be because it's not $350, it'd be $259 a semester. Personal expenses, again, those are non-billable, so those fall over here. The mandatory fees, everyone pays those. Those would be billable. Your tuition, and then your housing if you have your housing. If you have other types of housing, then it will be a different cost. But these are all falling into your cost of attendance. Transportation, again, is a personal item and is non-billable, so it falls over here. So you're really looking at $1,000, $1,200 if you're a resident student of non-billable costs that won't show up on your U-bill. So it's broken down when you pull this up. Also, this is not for the year. This is for the semester. So it's broken down by the semester for the fall. And then they'll give you the estimated cost for the spring as well. Perfect. Another way to look at your estimated cost, we love to use this, is called the expense estimator. And this is down here. You can see it's at financialaid.iastate.edu/costs/ and if you pull that up, it's going to go through and it's going to give you a good idea using our current tuition fees and all of that of what your billable costs are going to be. So again, billable costs, tuition and fees, housing if you're living on campus, meal plan and books. Non-billable are fuel and expenses, those personal items. If you're living off campus, still in your cost of attendance is food and housing costs because you got to eat and you got to sleep somewhere. And then your personal items and your clothing and things like that. So if you were to click into the financial aid expense estimator, we're going to walk through a little bit what it looks like. So when you pull up the screen, first thing you're going to want to do is choose whether you're a resident, non-resident. You're going to choose your credits. For most students, you're going to want to choose 12 credits because 12 credits is full-time. If you've got 13, 14, 15, doesn't really matter. After 12, you're considered full-time. And you're not charged anymore for tuition. Then you'll want to click on what status you are, whether you're a freshman, we're calling them first years now, sophomores, juniors, seniors, graduate. That helps with the budgeting. Your area of study. As a first year, if you were doing this, it would just typically be the standard undergraduate, but there's a drop down that you can pull down if you have different majors, like if you're in engineering, you're in business and things like that. Tech V2 is a little different sometimes for different programs, so pull that down and see, but the standard to figure out estimated costs, you could use the standard undergraduate. You'll then want to look at the housing. Housing will either have traditional suite style or university housing. If you click one of those, it's going to pull down some drop downs. This student here was in Larch with a double with air conditioning with a Cardinal meal plan. Our meal plans typically, if you're living on campus as a first year, we're going to sign you up for the Cardinal plan. We typically do that because it's all inclusive and students can go anytime. You don't have to eat all you can eat every time, but gives the students that opportunity to pop in and get food all the time. Because with the other plans, sometimes what we see is students will be so worried about using up their meals that sometimes they don't go. So if you are off campus also, you would click on that, and that will be figured into the cost for your cost of attendance and in your billable costs. So if you're off campus, you would click there. Then you can click any additional expenses. One that we encourage you to put in there is your book fee. Remember, that was $518 for the year, so you would put that in. And then type in any financial aid that you have. So that student that we looked at before had the ISU grant. So they had that $1,850. We just showed you an example here, but some other scholarships. So if you receive some other ISU scholarships, you'd put the amount in there for the year. This is all by the year. And then you would put any outside scholarships that you may have gotten in there as well. This point, you can put the federal loans in there if you're planning on taking them, but usually we recommend that when you go in and you're using the expense estimator, you do it without, because that'll give you an idea of how much you're going to need. But if you figure you're going to need those federal loans, then you can put the numbers in there as well. And it doesn't really matter whether you put the total amount in the sub or unsub, it just will be that placeholder for you. After you do that, it's going to give you an estimate. Your estimate will be broken down by, you can click on either for the full year or by the fall or spring, but they're very similar. Spring's a little less because the fees for a second semester, for the spring semester is a little less because there's not a records fee in there. That's why it's a little less. But you can see if it's in red, that means that that's the amount that would still be due. It lists out everything there. So we encourage you to do that, to use the expense estimators to kind of get an idea of what your costs are going to be for the year if you have any questions. Again, you can also meet with us. We'd be happy to walk you through that anytime and answer any questions you have. Please be aware that this doesn't include like any additional course fees that there might be. Usually that's in upper graduate work, but if there's any additional course fees, athletic tickets, parking permits, things like that aren't included in there. You could include that if you wanted, but it's not necessary to be on there. I always encourage students to be watching their bill all the time anyways, because we want the parking permit, but we don't want the parking tickets to show up on the U bill. Perfect. So now, how are you going to cover the cost? So once you figure out how much you kind of think you're going to have to pay, how are you going to cover those costs? So we're going to go briefly into the types of different financial aid and then go from there. So, all right. So types of financial aid. So grants and scholarships, that's free gift money. So if you fill out the FAFSA in order to get your grants and scholarships, there's merit scholarships that we give out. So the Office of Admissions does those automatically for any students first years coming in. If you're a transfer or first year student, One App is also how we give out a bunch of scholarships, and then non-ISU scholarships sometimes come from your community, from your school, other places as well. So scholarships are what we love to see because, again, free money is good money. So those are called gift aid. And again, you never have to accept those once those are in your package, those are ready for you. Another piece is work study. Work study is not in everyone's package. It's based on the FAFSA and it's based on a need, but anybody can work on campus. So our new platform is called SciHire, and you can click on that and go into that. We encourage you to do that sometime now in July. The jobs should be starting to show up on there. Last year we had like 8,000 students who were working on campus, so we encourage you to do that. I'll give you my little speech. Our studies show that students who work on campus 10 to 11 hours have a higher GPA than those who think that they're going to spend those 10 hours studying. So we highly recommend that. Also, we're student-centered if you're working on campus. So we're going to work around your schedule, your finals, and your breaks. So you can actually go home during break if you want to. There are jobs out in the community that might offer a little more. Typical work on campus is about $12 to $14 an hour. But you're already here. Again, you're going to have mentors pouring into you. You make those connections. So highly recommend students to work on campus. So work study, if you have it in your package, it's going to show up as the maximum is $3,200. So $1,600 a semester. And that's money the student can earn. So it's just like any other job. They would look on SciHire. They would apply for the job. They would interview for the job. And then once they have the job, they would be paid every 2 weeks. So it's a little tricky because it looks like it's financial aid, but it's not going to come off the U-bill. So when I work with students and families working on the expense estimator, I usually don't include that work study amount in there. I usually count that as their personal expenses for, like I said, for athletic tickets and things like that. They got to live when they're on campus, so they're going to go out to eat, they're going to go to movies, things like that. But it's not money that's going to go directly to the U-bill. I have had some students who have used that to pay back the U-bill as well. The tricky part on that is you're making the money so slowly that your U-bills usually due before that time. So that's work study. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We can go over that a little more. Other option for you, once you figure out how much is not covered by scholarships or financial aid, is that you can pay out of pocket as well. So you can either pay the full balance. So we've got 2 plans this year. So you can pay the full balance by August 20th, or you can sign up for the 3-month deferred billing plan. So you can sign up in that after August 1st. So you're going to, on August 1st, you're going to receive your actual U-bill, which will show you all those costs. And that's when you can sign up for that 3-month deferred billing plan if you want to do that. The important thing on each of those, if you're paying the semester in full or if you're paying the deferred billing plan, is to make sure that in August that everything is paid up, because you're going to want to register for classes in November. If you have too much on your U-bill at that point, then they'll put a hold on it. So we get a lot of calls in November. So just make sure you're watching that U-bill. You can contact accounts receivable. They can help you out with any questions about making payments. You also, if you have a 529 plan, they can make arrangements for those funds to be applied to the student's account as well. Again, accounts receivable is your best place there. Ask us, we'll probably transfer you over there. So awesome. So you can't pay some out, you can't pay it out of pocket if you have out of pocket. If you don't have out of pocket and you filled out the FAFSA, federal loans are available to all students. So if they applied for the FAFSA, those loans are available to them. Again, they are loans, and we always want to remind students that they are loans, that they have to be paid back, but they don't have to be paid back immediately. So what's going to happen is they'll receive the loan in 1 to 2 months. They'll receive a loan servicer from the Department of Education. That person will then be the person they're going to pay back their loans to eventually. And they can set up an account and start paying it off right away. Some students have, we'll go over sub and unsub a little bit later on, but some students, if you're building up interest, will want to pay that off early. So there's no penalty for paying anything off early. The amounts available to students, if you're a first-year student, it's $5,500. If you're a dependent student, $6,500 when you hit sophomore status. Some students coming in already have that sophomore status, so you'll see that higher amount on your in-workday. And then when you're a junior or senior, you could take out up to $7,500. And it'll be a mix of subsidized versus unsubsidized, again, based on your need on your FAFSA. The aggregate limit, or the maximum limit that we can provide for you, is $31,000 if you're a dependent student. If you're an independent student, those numbers, as you can see, are a little higher on there. And we get asked all the time, what does it take to be an independent student? So the biggies are if you're in the military, if you're married, if you have a dependent child, or you're 24. Those are the biggies. So just families saying, hey, you got to cover your own costs. A family's unwillingness to help or support, or inability to support, doesn't make a student automatically independent. So reach out to us if you have any questions about independent. But independents can take out a little more because they are funding it on their own. So those federal student loans are available to them. So this is a little bit about sub and unsub. We talked about that. So if you have in your package subsidized loans, and those are based on if you have some need, those subsidized loans are loans that will not accrue interest while you're in school. So they basically will sit there until 6 months after they graduate, and then they'll start accruing interest. The unsubsidized loans, however, will start accruing interest right away. So that way, if you have a combination of the two, they all just sit there, and then what will happen is it's called capitalization. So 6 months after the student graduates, they're going to take any interest that hasn't been paid, put it on top of the sub and the unsub, and that's what you'll be paying off in the future. The interest rate this year is 6.533. Each year it's a little different, so you'll probably see 4 different amounts if you're here all 4 years. and there's a 1% origination fee. This catches students sometimes. They'll take out $1,000 and they'll call us and say, hey, how come I got $990? I wanted the whole amount. Just be aware that there's a 1% origination fee charged, not by us, but by the federal government that goes back to them. Again, repayment does not have to start until 6 months after they graduate or drop below half time. This catches some students when they either take a gap semester or withdraw for just one semester. Sometimes those loans will go into repayment, but if they return back to school, as long as, again, they are attending at least half time, then their loans will go back into non-repayment. Subsidized will go back into not even accruing any interest. So awesome. So that is sub and unsub loans. Again, if you have any questions, give us a call on those. Again, just pointing out that origination fee because sometimes students get caught with that one. So if you want to take out those federal loans, if you've done your cost estimating, you're like, yes, we do want those federal loans, there's 3 steps you get to do in order to get them. So first thing you would do is to log into studentaid.gov, our friendly FAFSA site, logging in there, and then you need to complete entrance counseling and the master promissory note. The entrance counseling is about 20 to 30 minutes, and it goes over things like what's principal, what's interest, and just goes over the basics of what a loan is. The master promissory note is like 15 pages of federal docs, but basically it's saying that if you take out a loan, doing these doesn't guarantee that you're going to take the loan, but it just prepares it for it. So if you take out a loan, then you promise to pay it back whether you graduate on time, whether you get a job after graduating, or whether you like your experience at ISU. And we know you're going to love your experience at ISU, so that shouldn't be a problem. So how do you do that? You would go into studentaid.gov, and it's right here under loans and grants. This is kind of a screen that looks like what it is. And then you go over to the side, there'll be a drop down, and there's a master promissory note and the loan entrance counseling. Again, those are pretty easy to take care of, and students can do that right away. There's no reason to wait on those. Once they've done this for ISU, then that's good for 10 years. They don't have to do that again. So that's step 1. Step 2. Step 3 is you get to accept them in Workday. So we're going to walk through that a little bit. So remember, we did the financial aid. We clicked on that. It pulls up this screen. You can then click, instead of view my financial aid, you're going to click on accept and decline awards. You're going to put in this the year again for the 24-25. And then it's going to show you all your aid. So this is another way just to view all your aid as well. It'll show you the aid, like the scholarships. Remember I said those are gift aid, so those are automatically accepted. Work studies automatically accepted, although you could decline it if you didn't want it. And then it's going to have your loans here. This one has the subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loan. So it looks like there's 2 options, but I always say there's 4 options. I don't want to confuse you, but there's 4 options. So number 1, you can accept it. So if you want it, you can click accept and accept the full amount. Second option is you could go back over here and you can change it. You can't up it, but you can reduce it. So instead of 1,700, you're like, I only need 1,000. You could change that to 1,000 and accept that. You could also decline it. I usually recommend you don't decline it because our 4th option is you just leave it blank. If you leave it blank, it just sits there in the system. Sometimes life happens, and in the spring, recently I had a student this last year come in the spring. He wanted to take some summer courses, and he's like, I need more aid. There's not as much aid in the summer. He said, can I take out my fall and my spring? As long as it's during the school year and the school year hasn't ended, you could still take those out. So he took those help funds. So in case something were to come up and you needed the funds, you could accept them. Now, if you do decline them, and then later you're like, oh, I should have taken those loans, just reach out to us because we can put them back on your account as well. The tricky part in Workday, if you've gone into it, because you're going to need to do this for fall and the spring, that if you change the amount, you're going to need to accept the same amount for fall and spring. But I worked recently with a student who just wanted a certain amount for the fall and wasn't sure if they're going to need it for the spring. So what they had to do was accept them both, reach out to me, and then I put it back into the offered status for the spring. So then they could choose it later. Automatically, Workday is going to require you to accept them both at the same level. If you have any questions about that, reach out to us again. So if after that you still have more funds that you need that can't be covered again out of pocket or through your gift aid or through the federal loans, there are some more options out there, and you'll see that on your aid package. It showed that eligibility in the beginning, and the two options are the Parent Plus loan and private education loans. So I'm going to go over these briefly, but feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about what those are. But the federal plus parent plus loan, personally, when people come into my office, I don't really encourage it. The benefit to the parent plus loan is that they don't do a full-on credit check. Usually not an issue for most parents, but they don't do a full-on credit check. If you were to apply for a plus loan and you were denied, then you could get some additional unsub up to what an independent student would receive. So that's a positive thing there. The negatives to me are that it's in the parent's name, can never be put in the student's name. You guys can have a pinky swear that he's going to pay you back, but there's no guarantee they can do that. The interest rate is higher than private loans right now, and there's this 4.228 origination fee. I met with a family a couple of weeks ago. They took out, they were on top of it. They took out their plus already. And I said, do you realize that close to $900 is going to fees that doesn't even go towards the student and starts accruing interest right away? So what I usually encourage is the private education loans. And a couple tips that I would do with the private education loans is that the student takes out the loan with the parent as a cosigner because it's their education. Now, a parent could do it without that, but I usually encourage the student to take it out with the parent as a cosigner. The interest rates are lower. ISL is the company I usually show and recommend people to because their maximum is 8.00 right now, which is a whole interest a point lower than the federal, and I've seen them a lot lower than that as well when people apply for them. And again, this is going to be based on the parent's credit because the student doesn't have credit. That's why the parent needs to co-sign with them on it. And they don't have any origination fees, which is phenomenal. So that one parent, I shared with them that, if you took that off, that's $900 that's going to them, plus lower interest if they wanted to cancel that parent plus loan for that parent that did it. So on the bottom down here, that financialaid.iastate.edu/loans/private loans, you can go into our financial aid website and there's a drop down for loans and you just can go through that, or shoot us an email and we'll send you the link. Usually when I meet with families, I send them the straight link so they don't have to click 13 times to get into the website in order to find it. But if you have any questions, give us a call and we'll direct you to all of them. So you can use with private loans too. You can use any lenders that you know of. So you may already have a relationship with a lender and you might be able to work with them on it. Basically, they'll send us the information and then we'll certify it and we'll give it back. So what happens is that you would apply for a private loan through any of the companies. You'll tell them amount that you want. They'll send us that amount. We'll certify it's within your cost of attendance. We'll send that back to them. Then they have this right to rescind, where you have a right to rescind or to back out a loan if you want. After that, they'll send us the funds and then we'll disperse the funds for the fall and for the spring. I recommend you work on your budget and you do it for the year. I did have one student who was a finance major who's like, oh no, if this is my passion, I'm going to do this every semester. That's good if you got that, but for most families, I'd recommend you do it for the year, figure out how much you're going to need and take out those loans. If you're going to shoot anyways, I usually encourage you to shoot a little bit high, not crazy, because we want to keep those loans low. I mean, remember, up to your billable amount, not just your cost of attendance, up to your billable amount. But if you took out $10,000 and you only needed $9,000, all you need to do is let us know, and we'll send $1,000 back to the company, so then you're not liable for that. If you took out 10 and you really need 11, you got to take out another loan for that little extra. So if you're going to make a fudge, make sure you fudge it a little bit on the higher end. So that's a little bit about private loans, plus loans versus private loans. Again, sit down and talk with us and we can walk through all of this with you. We'd love to do that with you. So what's next after this? So financial aid will disperse on August 21st for the fall. We recommend that you continue to check in Workday for any financial aid tasks in case anything shows up. The good thing this year is that verification is really low. In the past, it would be about a third of the students would have to verify their taxes, their income, information about themselves. But with all the fun that the FAFSA had this year, they really minimized the amount that we actually have to verify this year. So that's nice. If there is anything that shows up though for verification or something, please get that stuff to us as soon as possible because we can't disperse funds until that is taken care of. If a student's financial aid exceeds the amount owed on their U-bill, what's going to happen is in 3 to 5, after the money's dispersed, 3 to 5 business days after that, the money will be sent to their direct deposit to the bank account that they've set up. This is important for students who are living on campus or don't have a meal plan. Because those monies are in your cost of attendance, you can still take out a loan to help cover your housing and your food off campus, but those monies will go to them. But the key that I find out is you need to work with your student on budgeting. So they're going to get a big check sometimes in the beginning of the semester. And that's usually, if it's up to their cost of attendance, the maximum we can give them. So sometimes in November, we get a call and they say, hey, I ran out of money. I still need to pay my rent, but they're not going to get another check again until January. So make sure they budget well if they're living off campus and don't have a meal plan. The other thing too, if you're living off campus too, realize that your aid's not going to hit until after probably your first payment. So you're going to have to cover that first payment in August because most leases in town start August 1st. And so you'll have to pay that in your security deposit before getting any of your aid. So just plan ahead on that. Another tip too, if we're talking about housing, just another little tip. If you ever are planning on doing a study abroad, I highly encourage you to stay on campus because what happens is that if you're on campus, we'll cancel your study, your housing, your food on campus while you go off to study abroad. Versus if you have a lease in town, they don't do that for you. So if you're in a lease in town, you're going to be paying money for your housing there plus your housing in the study abroad program. So just a little tip in case you're interested in that. So awesome. Since we are the Office of Financial Aid and Student Financial Success, I'm going to give a little plug at one more time for the Cyclone Cash course, just when your student thinks that their class schedule is complete, because Iowa State's just a giving university, we're going to give you one more class. It's called the Cyclone Cash course. All students in the state of Iowa are required to do this course. Covers things like budgeting, spending, and all of that. Whether you go here, UNI, or the other university, it's required of all students. So we highly encourage the students to do that just to help them in their financial success. And then lastly, my little tip that I share with all the families that come in is to be thankful for possible scholarships for 25 and 26. All the 1-apps have been given out this year, so you could reach out to your department to see if there's any additional funds. Because what happens sometimes is funds go out. Some students don't come to Iowa State. I know they all should, but some don't. So sometimes they have additional funds, so you could reach out to them. But your student's going to be here all of 1 month, and we're going to say, hey, do you want any financial aid for 25, 26? Typically, your student's going to be like, I am knee-deep in my studies right now. There's no way that I can fill that out right now. So again, Thanksgiving, you're going to have a week off. That's why I encourage them to do their 1-app during Thanksgiving and their FAFSA. Hopefully, if it's open, we're hoping that it's going to be open to get it done early so that you meet all those priority deadlines. The sooner you get those things in, the better, so that it's in the system. And then lastly, if you have any questions about financial aid, again, come see us. We put the aid in financial aid. We're here to help you. So your student can call in between 8 and 5 during the school year. They can drop in. We always have an advisor available to them. And they can schedule an appointment. I love it when they schedule appointments. You can either do it in person or virtually, because that way I can kind of look it up and know what we're dealing with before they come in. But we are here to help. So they can just reach out to, I put our general number on there and our general email, but that's mine at the bottom too. If you weren't falling asleep too much, but if you had any questions for me, you could reach out to me as well. So I will leave this on the screen for just a few more minutes. And then after that, hopefully some of your questions got answered. But again, please reach out to us if you have any questions. Our goal here is truly to make financial aid a successful adventure for you and answer any questions you have. If you ever have a hold on anything or any of those questions, please encourage your student to come in. I always tell students when they leave my office, we should not be, maybe not your first resource, because again, parents possibly, but we shouldn't be your last resource. Come in and see us if you ever have any questions or concerns. All right, I'm going to leave this on the screen for a little bit longer, and then we are going to log off. Thanks for hanging in there with us, and if you have any questions, reach out. Take care. Bye.